Hey, Clear Lake peeps. How y'all doing today? This will be Clear Lake report for 12/19/2024. I think I got the month right, I got the date right, and I got the year right this time. So we're off to a great start. It'll more than likely be the last update for this year. Just depends, but more than likely, looking at the weather, today's probably gonna be the last time I get out on the water, unless something exciting happens. And if it does, then we'll pay attention to the details and update you. So let's start out with the stuff that most people are interested in, and then they go away. And that's water temperature is starting out anywhere around, well, we'll call it between 50 and 50.5 for morning lows from what I've seen. I've been out 2 days, today and yesterday. The warmest water I found was almost 54, but overall, most of where I was running around in the lake, 51-ish, plus or minus. So it hadn't dipped into the 40s yet, according to my equipment. So on your equipment, it may be in the 40s. Heck, it could be in the 60s. This is the only consistent thing, is just what I have to measure. So lake level came up a full foot. It's at 4.4. Last week, this time, it was at 3.3. So that's good news. I like the way it's coming up. It's coming up kind of slowly and kind of manageably. So if we look at the weather over the next, actually through past Christmas, I added it all up this morning. It looks like, well, a little over 4 inches of rain is predicted over the next week. That could put us in a situation, not a situation, but it could raise the lake from 4.4 to anywhere from a foot to a foot and a half, depending on how accurate the forecast is. All the creeks that I see are running, which means the watercolor is stained, especially on this upper end of the lake. I actually got around quite a bit today. What I found yesterday was coming out of the state park, got down through the Narrows, and the water was nice. I could see 3.5 feet in some areas. Color wasn't weird. It looked good. Today I stayed up in, we'll just call it above the Narrows, and I got about halfway up through Lucerne. And as expected, just like it is over at the state park, I'm not going to call it muddy, because you can still see about 1.5 feet, but it's definitely stained brown from runoff. And it's also doing that funky little thing I noticed over in Lucerne this afternoon, where you look down at where your trolling motor's running, and it's kicking up kind of a red algae trail underneath the surface. So you can see where your trolling motor's going. Those of you who fish here a lot, you know what I'm talking about. So those are currently the conditions. There's lots of birds all over the place. I'm sitting out here in the middle of the upper part of the lake right now, and to the left of me there's grebes, dead ahead there's grebes, behind me and to the right there's grebes. You get down into the Narrows, there's grebes and cormorants, pelicans. They're all over the place, so that's a good sign. As far as any other conditions to report, I did on this upper end of the lake today, I did encounter some stuff floating that's come out from some of the creeks. So, usually you don't have to worry when you run around up here, but with some of the stuff that's happened the last couple of weeks, some of these big storms, there is some stuff floating around out there, so just pay attention. The other thing that's going on is we're in that window where it can be pretty foggy. A couple mornings ago, it was pretty much fogged in. Yesterday it was nice from the start. Today it was foggy till 10 o'clock. Actually, I think up above here it was foggy longer. I launched at the state park, and there was a gap between the upper part of the lake and just below the narrows. There was fog down in the Redbud Arm too. So the center portion of the lake around the narrows, plus or minus a half a mile to a mile, was pretty clear. So those are pretty much your conditions. The creeks, after the last big storm, some of the creeks were running clear again already. So, the water's coming in at a really nice pace, although we've still got 2.5 months of rainy season left. So I don't think there's going to be any problem with getting the lake to full this year, which is a good thing. Talking about activities, I didn't see anything for the rest of the year, which is the next 2 weeks. Fish that people are chasing. People are catching catfish, whether they're fishing for them or not. There's quite a few people out fishing for crappie, and they're having success. Although I have talked to a few people complaining about some of the fish are smaller than they've seen in the past. I know one of my neighbors, he's even catching some bluegill. That guy is just consistently a fish catching machine during the winter months. Bass fishing, it's kind of like you're either on them or you're not. From what I've seen, I've done my best in the afternoon, like from 3 o'clock to 4:30, somewhere in that window. Admittedly, I'm not out at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I'll pick up one. Yesterday's a good example. Between 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock, I had 2 fish. And then from about 3:30 to 4:30-ish, I caught another 8. So I ended up with 10 fish yesterday. Nothing to brag about. I mean, 4 of them were legit keepers, but they weren't 2-pounders. The rest of them were, I guess, what most guys call pounders. But it was fun. Compared to today, where I had 1 bite, never caught a fish. I kind of was messed up the last 2 days because when I went out and put the trolling motor in the water, my Mega Live actually worked. And I never know when it's going to work and when it's not going to work. Kind of like, I won't say it. But anyway, kind of like it works when it wants to. And I was just fascinated watching how, watching my bait, watching fish react to it, watching fish follow it down and not eat it. It's entertaining, to say the least. So as far as I know, there's no activities coming up, although there's always somebody that puts on an informal turkey shoot, either for Christmas or New Year's Day. So the local tackle shops can kind of keep you posted on that. Let's talk real quickly about fishing this next year. There's been a lot of really nice fish caught this year. There's not been a ton of 2-pound and under fish. And most of these tournaments you see, there's a lot of 14 to 16-pound limits. And of course, there's the 20s and the 30s. Those are, regardless what anybody says, those are exceptions. John's a real good example, John Pearl. I think he was on a guide trip the other day. He posted, and I don't know how many fish he actually caught. 2 of them were not his clients. 2 of them were 9s. So, and if you caught 1 or 2 9s, you'd be happy anyway, no matter what you caught. But they're really healthy looking fish. Some of the better fish that we've caught during the last month are very solid. They're in good condition. And I'm looking at next year thinking it's going to be another year where probably the numbers aren't going to be that great, but when you catch one, it's going to be a nice fish. I've talked to a lot of guys, who fish the lake regularly, and almost every day they catch at least 1 5-pound plus fish. You don't do that on many places. So I'm really encouraged by what I've seen this year. It's not perfect. It's not back to where, in my opinion, it's not back to where it was, but it's good enough to be, it's got special status, and I think it continues to hold that special status. So there's, although I'm not guiding during this winter time, I'll pick it back up in February. There's a number of guides up here who will work all winter long. And if anybody, I think I said in the last post, I mentioned a few, but anybody looking for a guide for current times, you can always post a comment down below and I'll see it, and I'll give you a couple of names. That's one thing that there's plenty of up here now is our guides. We're way beyond the days of only having 2 or 3. There's a bunch of them, and most of them are pretty doggone competent, I'll tell you. Good equipment. There's some new ones. There's some names that pop up every once in a while. Again, just to be timely, Ed Legan is the guy you want to contact if you want to try to catch crappie. He lives down there in the Oaks, and he's the one that's on them. So, I knew it was going to be a little long this time because I was going to blabber, but thanks for all of you for the year, hanging in there. Love the ones that spend the time to send a little comment. And always appreciate that. It's like sometimes you're doing this, you feel like you're in a vacuum, and I'm doing my best to try to stay consistent. I have to really manage things the right way, and right now getting sick is not one option, so I have to kind of behave myself, and some days I look out the window and think, oh, I should have gone. So I guess the last thing, let's talk about golden mussel. As far as I know, I have not heard any changes in the mussel program up here. Those of you who fished here know that the quagga program's been in place. You can say what you want about it. It's a manageable program, and it's not a real hassle as long as you play by the rules, which everybody expects every boater to play by the rules. So adding another mussel to the concern, I don't envision any impact or change in the program because of it. It's too early to tell by talking to, a ramp monitor, and I only got to talk to one of them. And sometimes they're almost the last ones to know. But I'm not thinking that there's going to be a big change in program up here. So just continue doing what you're doing. The new stickers I found out today are available. So they typically get them out a week and a half before the end of the year. You can get them at all the tackle shops. Even some of the hotels, I think, take care of business with them. So Kelseyville Lumber is another good example of a business that does them. So that's about it. I'm going to call it at that. Merry Christmas to all you folks. Hope you have a good one. Hope you have a safe end of the year. Hope Santa brings you something useful or something fun. Hope you get to spend some time with your family that's most useful. And we'll see you when we see you the next time. Thanks.